Welcome to Investing in Comic Books. We put out a series of books that talk about the history of comics and the investment potential in them. Check them out at hawknescomics.com. I am Terry Hoknes. Today we're going to look at Strange Adventures #1 from DC, published in 1950. Classic cover, nice 52 big page, 10-cent issue. And this was the first issue of the long-running series from DC. Contains an adaptation of the movie Destination Moon. It's got a distinctive gray tone photo cover and one of the most popular sci-fi covers ever in comic books. It's the second most valuable non-superhero genre DC comic of the entire Atomic Age, and it is the most valuable DC comic from 1950 and the 11th most valuable DC comic of the entire decade of the Atomic Age. Now, a severe market correction happened on all issues of this series in 2012. Prices were drastically lowered by Overstreet Price guide, as prices were quite high for a non-superhero title. The CGC census overall has graded 62 copies in all conditions. 6 of those grade 9.0 or better, and in the past decade, Heritage has sold 40 copies, which works out to roughly 3 or 4 a year on average. So that's not too many. Overall, already we can see it's a pretty rare book to find. Looking at the Overstreet Price guide values for the last 5 years, we'll see that currently the top grade 9.2 is worth $4,500. However, notice that's a big drop from last year where it had actually stalled. It had been making steady moves every year up until this one. Big market correction, dropped to $1,400. So if you had just bought a copy, this was bad timing because you're going to now have to wait quite a while. Do I think this book will eventually go back up? Of course I do, but it's a matter of how long is it going to take. It was probably last at $4,500 a decade ago, so is it going to take a decade to get back up to where it is? Yes, probably. Could even take longer, possibly. So, with the big price drop this year, you'll notice that affected all grades. And so, if we don't include 2012, what do we see? Well, in the 9.0, it had been moving up decently, but had also fallen in 2011. So you're going to see that in 2010, the 8 had started to drop. So 2009 seems to be the last strong year for this book in the low grades. And then it pretty well stalled, and then the last 2 years in a row, it has fallen. Could this book fall even further? Yes, it could. And that does sometimes happen. Is it going to fall forever? No, definitely not. This is a rare book. It's in demand. Unfortunately, the price just got a little bit ahead of itself. The hype of the popularity of this book has just driven the price up a little fast, and now there's hesitancy for collectors to keep paying above guide prices. Let's look at Heritage sales. Their best sale ever is for a 9.2 Davis Crippen D copy. And that copy has actually been sold twice through Heritage, and in 2006 and 2008. Luckily, the investor in 2006 actually made a little bit of money on it in 2008 when it sold for $5,300, which at that time was about guide. And the copy that he bought the 2 years earlier, he had actually got for under guide. And looking at other copies, we see some 9.0s had sold almost a decade ago. And at that time, again, for about guide. So this book has not ever been bringing above guide prices. Basically, guide prices roughly on the mark or a little bit less. And that, again, is why it's affected the market. Notice that the best sales of this book have all been over 5 years ago. We do have a 2009 sale here, though, for $2,600. And again, that is below guide, and I think that's helped influence the decision that the book value is simply too high. Collectors are not willing to pay the guide or above guide. So the book has been dropped in the price guide to be more realistic. Looking at the CGC census, again, there's one 9.4 and one 9.2. So in the highest grades, there are no copies. In near mint, there's only the 2, and then there's a few more trickle in the mid to high grade copies, but again, still a rare book in all conditions. There's not a lot of books on the census, only 62 in total. So what do we think about investing in this book? Well, due to the big drop in the price guide would make it seem like this is definitely not a book to invest in. However, usually what happens is when there's a big drop like this, that means copies are consistently selling for under guide. This could actually be an opportunity to get the book even cheaper. So if it guides for $4,500, it's potential that you could find a copy for $3,500 if any come on the market. And again, if you're buying for long term, this could be a great opportunity. The book has been at $5,900 in the past, so it's most likely going to go there one day in the future again if you are sitting on this book for long term. Low grade, again, the book hasn't been moving up enough ever in high grade, so that really anything 6 or less has been so minimal that even for it to come back up, it's not likely going to have much movement. So again, unless you can find a deal on this book being discounted due to the drop in guide, I would say thumbs down to buying a 6 or less. But if you're going to buy a 9 or higher, then I'm going to give this book thumbs up. It's a key issue. It is rare, super rare in high grade, and one of the most valuable DC Comics of the 1950s. Key book, classic cover. And it's, of course, a DC #1 of a series that ran for over 20 years. So there you go, Strange Adventures #1. If you'd like to learn about this or thousands more comics from the gold, silver, bronze ages, we have them all covered in our series of books called Investing in Comic Books at our website, hawknescomics.com, where you'll learn quickly where you should invest your money, and you'll learn a lot about these books as you go. So if you'd like to see a video about a specific comic book, please contact me at hawknes@hotmail.com. I'll see what I can do for you, and thanks for watching.